It's all going to zero against Bitcoin.
It's going up forever.
You're against Bitcoin, you're against freedom.
Sell-off. A lot of investors may be even more concerned about being behind with their retirement savings. A new CNBC SurveyMonkey poll found that about 7 out of 10 workers are concerned about being able to fully retire. CNBC's senior personal finance correspondent Sharon Epperson is here with us right now to break it all down. Good morning, Sharon.
Good morning, Becky. You know, market volatility may explain some of the concerns of many Americans. This survey of more than 6,600 adults, including about 2,600 retirees and 4,000 adults working full-time or part-time in early August, found a number of findings about how people feel about their retirement. The majority acknowledge that reaching retirement may not happen like it did for their parents. 8 out of 10 workers, 82%, say achieving a comfortable retirement is much harder or somewhat harder to achieve. But looking at their own futures, the CNBC poll found 44% say they are cautiously optimistic about their ability to meet their retirement goal. 27% are realistic about that happening. 21%, though, are doubtful, and 9% say they believe it's never going to happen. With the decline in traditional pensions, rising health care costs, and people living longer, many experts that we spoke to say rethinking retirement is the new reality, and it may mean working at least part-time in your later years. The CNBC poll found most workers, 69%, are concerned about being able to afford to stop working or retire fully. The highest percentage of concern was among millennials and Gen Xers. And even among retirees, more than a quarter, 28%, say they are currently working to supplement their retirement funds, either because they want to or they have to. Joe Coughlin, who heads the Age Lab at MIT, tells me that retirement itself is being retired. He says often within a year or two, retirees find out that they're either needing more money or they need to do something, and so they go back to work in some capacity. You can read a lot more about the key findings in this CNBC Your Money Retirement Survey on CNBC.com.
Yo, welcome to Simply Bitcoin Live, your number one source for the peaceful Bitcoin revolution, covering news, culture, dramatic warfare. We will be your guide through the separation of money and state. There you have the legacy propaganda media literally trying to convince you that retirement needs to be retired somehow. You know, forget about all the productivity gains, forget about all the technological advances, forget about, you know, the introduction of AI, you know, forget about all of that, right? They're essentially trying to convince you that all of a sudden it's normal that you have to retire later than your parents. It's normal that somehow you might not be able to retire altogether. Somehow it's normal that you might have to get a second job. It's not normal whatsoever. You're just using, or whoever is listening to this is why we cover these types of things, they're just using the wrong money. It's as simple as that. If you save and earn in Bitcoin and you do it over a long period of time, I promise you that not only will you be able to retire, your children will be better off, everyone will be better off. It's incredibly hard to save for the future if not only do you have to pay income tax, you are paying a more insidious covert tax, which is the tax of inflation. That's why groceries are getting higher. That's why gas prices are going through the roof. That's why energy is going through the roof. That's why housing is going through the roof. None of that is normal. We've been psyoped as a society to think that somehow these things are normal. They're not normal whatsoever, and I will prove it to you. Go to a website called Priced in Bitcoin 21, and you'll see that the cost of goods, the cost of housing, the cost of the S&P 500, the cost of gold, the cost of everything is progressively going lower if you're using Bitcoin as your unit of account. So it's not that the American dream is dead. It's not that 7 out of 10 Americans, because of the circumstances, because it's just the way the world works now these days, are never going to be able to save for retirement. It's that 7 out of 10 Americans are using the wrong money. They're using the wrong unit of account. It's as simple as that. The reason that people are not able to retire with dignity, I might add, because I think after you get past a certain age, like, you should be able to enjoy your golden years. You know, you worked your butt off the majority of your life, right? You paid your taxes, you did everything that they said that you should do, and then all of a sudden you still don't have enough money to get by? Why is that? Well, it's the money. The money is stealing from you. The money is broken. And this is a lot harder for me to convince people of if you live in the West, if you live in the developing world, in the developed world, because the inflation rate is ever so slight that you don't feel like you're being stolen from. You realize it a little bit more when they go crazy with the money printing sprees, like what happened during the pandemic. And, you know, they're trying to convince you that the inflation rate is like 8%. But, you know, if you use the CPI numbers back from the 1970s, it's actually like 15%. But you put that aside for a sec. If you're in the developing world, that doesn't fly. You already know your money's a scam. You already know your money isn't working for you. When you're dealing with double-digit inflation, it doesn't matter how nice the production on TV is and how official the chyrons look and how official the government official is behind the podium. The fact is that you just don't believe it. You know for a fact, even maybe on an instinctual level, inherently you know that the money is fundamentally broken and it's stealing from you, and it forces you to seek an alternative. Bitcoin is the solution to inflation. Bitcoin is the solution to retirement. Full stop. And again, we're sitting at $56,292. It's a lot of money for a lot of people. You don't need to get to 1 Bitcoin. I would say do whatever you can to get to 1 Bitcoin, but you don't need a full Bitcoin. All you need to do is switch your unit of account from fiat to Bitcoin. And even if you put a percentage of your savings, let's say 10, 15, 20%, and you do that for an extended period of time, I promise you that your life will get better. You'll have hope for the future. You'll have the ability to save for the future. Therefore, your mindset of, oh my God, how am I going to put food on the table? Living paycheck to paycheck will change to a mindset of, oh my God, I can have hopes. I can have dreams. So, you know, shame on the legacy media to try to convince us of this idea of you'll own nothing, you'll be happy. You know, we're going to normalize it for you. It's fine that you're going to be worse off than your parents. You don't need all of that stuff. I have a question. Then who owns everything? Because if someone says you'll own nothing and be happy, then who owns everything then? I have a question. If you know, the majority of society is not benefiting from the money printing, who is benefiting from the money printing? Well, it's very simple. This is why you have record wealth inequality in the United States. Every time they print money, it's a wealth redistribution mechanism from the lower and middle classes that don't have the means to save in assets to the very wealthy that do have the means to save in assets. So therefore, every time they print money, there's asset inflation. And because they own asset, they see the prices of, you know, whatever their real estate and their equities and then whatever it is they're holding go through the roof. So they feel like they're getting richer, but they're not. They're just getting richer on paper. They're not getting richer in purchasing power terms. So this is our job as Bitcoiners in this information narrative trench warfare and the battlegrounds of the internet, is to wake people up to a better alternative. Because what I saw from that anchor, what I saw from that legacy media broadcast is they're trying to normalize it to you. And they're basically trying to tell you, like, you just have to look, technology is getting better. you know, if you're a middle class person today, you probably live better than a billionaire 100 years ago. Forget about all of that. You just have to get used to just not retiring and just life getting perpetually more expensive for the rest of time. That is propaganda for fiat. That is the fiat propaganda machine. And we, as Bitcoiners, we're telling you the truth. There's a better way. Bitcoin. There's a reason that Michael Saylor has the website hope.com. And if you go to it, it's a course on Bitcoin. Bitcoin is hope. Bitcoin is hope for the better future. Bitcoin is optimism for the future. Bitcoin is prosperity for the future versus fiat, which is nihilism, poverty, despair, destruction, endless wars, and a form of slavery, if we're being quite frank and honest, right? So anyways, I want to start the show a little bit of a long monologue, but I had to say it, bro, because I'm seeing this reporter just like basically saying like, look, you just used to it, bro. You're gonna be worse off than your parents. Not to mention the fact that most Gen Zers and millennials have absolutely no opportunity to be able to afford housing. Just forget about all of that. Like, you know what? You might have to work an extra job in your 80s. That's okay. Like, no, I refuse this normalization. We're fighting back and we're saying there's a better way, and that better way is Bitcoin. I'm going to pass it on to our guest for today, Skylar. Skylar, what are your thoughts on the cold opening, man? It's like, that's some heavy propaganda, dude. That's crazy to me.
Gaslighting 101, for sure, for sure. They want you to have nothing and be poor. They want you to sit and sit and sit until they own all the assets. You know, real estate's a shitcoin. I've experienced it. You know, we can just go there. It's not going to be something that holds up. It's a depreciating box on dirt. And eventually they want BlackRock to own it all. They're already trying to get all the coins and they want all the houses. And that's just the evolution that we're going.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just the way the fiat game. That's the cantillionaire effect, right? Like that's what it is. Like, as long as the government has this ability to create money for free out of thin air, their friends are going to get the main they're going to be the main benefactors of that. And the middle class is going to get absolutely destroyed. And the lower class are going to be happy because they're going to be giving away, essentially peanuts. That's when you're going to hear the introduction of UBI very soon, right? But no, I refuse to just survive. I want to thrive. I want my future family to thrive. I want my children to thrive. Opti, what's your take on that? I mean, bro, Joe has been doing an incredible job as the MSNBC anchor. What happened there, man? Like, it's almost as if he forgot about Bitcoin.
I don't know. You guys sound like extremists, and my only thought is shut up, peasant, get back to work, and you will not own anything except your perpetual poverty. This is the way. The elites know what's going on. They have everything under control. Let them acquire all the wealth, and you have no hope. Just accept it. This is the way things are. And just shut up. You just quit whining and work harder, because that's the way things are. No, I'm obviously trolling here, but yeah, it's absolutely incredible. I think anyone this year, especially this year, if you've been in Bitcoin for a while, you probably noticed this, but I think this year it's becoming very clear to most people that the corporate press is nothing but propaganda machines. And they just constantly gaslight you. And I think that was one of those moments where it's like, hey, retirement is outside of all of your reach. Accept it. This is the way things are. But trust us, bro. The next person to get elected is going to fix this. Just trust the process.
Vote hard.
That's all I'm hearing. Yeah, that's all I'm hearing. Mm-hmm. Also, Nico, I told you this before, and I want to tell the audience, I'm super geeked up on coffee this morning. I made it a little stronger, so I feel a little bit of nausea right now, but the show goes on, and we'll be good to go. So if I black out and I faint on stream, you guys know the reason. Too much coffee, too much caffeine this morning. I'm like literally jittery right now. But anyways, enough of me.
All right, everybody. Before we get on to the show, I do give a shout out to our lead sponsor. Of course, Simply Bitcoin is powered by BitcoinWell.com. BitcoinWell.com is the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack. It is one of the only Bitcoin on-ramps that is automatic self-custody. That means that when you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you don't even have an opportunity to leave it on the exchange. As soon as the funds clear, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address, which perfectly aligns with the Simply Bitcoin ethos of the separation of money and state. To get started, you put in your email address as soon as you go to bitcoinwell.com. The sign-up process takes 2 to 5 minutes, and bada bing, bada boom, you're ready to start purchasing Bitcoin. Also, when you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you earn Bitcoin Well points, and you could use those points towards the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest. Bitcoin Wishing Well contest is essentially you toss a coin into the wishing well and you have an opportunity to win up to 1 million sats. This week has been crazy. We've had 2 days this week that the jackpot was 21,000 sats. So we'll see what it is today. We're going to toss a coin into the wishing well, and first person to scan it with their Bitcoin Lightning wallets wins 500 Satoshis. If you use promo code SIMPLYBTC to sign up to bitcoinwell.com, you get 3 tosses into the Bitcoin Wishing Well absolutely free.
Hey, Nico, before you move on. All right, sorry. Do the plug. Support self-custody by default. Go to bitcoinwell.com.
Exactly.
Some free alpha for you guys, and I'm gonna really blow Narwhal Taco's cover here. But apparently, Rumble is ahead of the game a little bit on the stream. So go to Rumble, like, subscribe, watch us on Rumble, and you will be ahead of everyone else on YouTube, and you can claim these sets. So sorry, Narwhal, but that's some alpha for you guys if you want some. You want to win the Bitcoin Well and get those sets.
All right, everybody. So let's head on to the numbers. Lots to talk about. Let's go.
The Bitcoin numbers.
Everybody, every time you buy a hardware wallet, it usually comes with a piece of paper, and that piece of paper is labeled 1 through 12 or 1 through 24, and you're to write down your seed words on that piece of paper. That's not how you should do it. You want your seed phrase to last generations. They don't call it generational wealth for no reason, and that's exactly what the Stamp Seed Kit is for. Literally, proof of work. Stamp your seed into a titanium seed plate. The Stamp Seed is titanium seed phrase storage. It comes with the hammer, it comes with the letter stamping tools, and you literally hammer in the letters into a titanium plate so that your seed phrase stands the test of time. Also, it's waterproof, it's fireproof. They literally took a blowtorch to it, and it survived. They literally dunked it in salt water. It survived. Your dog's probably not going to want to eat a piece of titanium. If you want to maintain the relationship with your grandchildren, you want to store your seed phrase properly, and of course, we recommend Stamp Seed. The titanium seed phrase storage kit. Use promo code SIMPLY to get the whole kit, the letters, the hammer, the anvil, everything shipped to your house. You get 15% off if you use promo code SIMPLY. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $56,360. Sats per dollar, 1,774. Block height, 860,026. Blocks to halving, 189,974. Halving estimate March 23rd, 2028. Total Lightning Network capacity, 4,934 BTC. Capacity value, 278 million. Realized monetary inflation, 1.4%. Market capitalization, 1.11 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 6.41%. Anyways, this happens every couple of days, and of course, as a Bitcoin media organization, we have to address it. So the latest news, Coinbase CFO says Kamala Harris accepts crypto donations, and apparently that originally came from Fortune. But if you take a look at the details, that doesn't seem to be the case. Here's Predator, and he says, Kamala Harris campaign donation page does not have a Bitcoin option. Very disappointing to see everyone push this false story. Now, I did a little bit more digging. Here's a CoinDesk article, and here it is. The headline, Kamala Harris is not directly accepting crypto donations. A PAC is. A Coinbase executive appears to have misspoken or have been imprecise when she said President Kamala Harris is accepting crypto donations. Opti, isn't it kind of funny that, like, you know, I think a couple weeks ago when the whole Crypto for Harris thing started happening, we always kept hearing like it was a member from the Kamala campaign, or it was a member from the Kamala White House that was saying that she was going to be pro crypto, but she never fully endorsed it herself. And something, the case that we've been making for on Simply Bitcoin is I will literally wear a Kamala Harris shirt tomorrow as soon as she comes out and matches exactly what the opposing political party is. I'm going to protect the right to self-custody, and I'm going to protect the right to mine. As soon as she says those things, you know, I'll say, okay, great, let's vote for perfect. It's not partisan anymore. But until she says those things, every couple of weeks I see a little heartbeat. And it's like, it's a little bit of a gaslight. Like this is like a misrepresentation of what was happening. It's like, no, the Kamala campaign isn't accepting crypto donations. It wouldn't make sense for them to accept crypto donations. The whole Democratic Party platform literally does not mention digital assets one time. But again, you see this article basically saying that, like, you know what, it's not Kamala directly herself. It's actually a PAC that is accepting donations for her. Now, what I would say is talk is cheap, actions are expensive. And you can't have the votes of the Bitcoin community, but also not come out with any concrete policies and expect the trust me bro model. Like, that doesn't work like that. And one of the things I kept saying, because this is like the thing that I keep running into when I try to make this argument, guys, we are a Bitcoin only show. Because we're a Bitcoin only show, because we are single issue voters, I can't emphasize this enough. Bitcoin over party, not party over Bitcoin. Simple as that. It's a very simple concept for everyone to understand. Kamala is in the executive branch right now. She could free Ross right now. She could say, I'm going to protect the right to self-custody. She could say, I'm going to protect the right to mine Bitcoin. She could say that right now. Take the momentum out of Trump's campaign. It is a very close election. And us Bitcoiners, I'm sure a lot of us will get behind Kamala if she does that. She has the ability to do that right now. She hasn't done this. But these articles, we're going to continue calling them out because it's a misrepresentation of what her actual campaign is actually doing and what their stance is on the industry as a whole. And by the way, this isn't just a isolated incident. On that same show that we played you the cold opening from, Mark Cuban, which has been a proponent of not only for the Crypto for Harris stuff, but also for the Kamala campaign as a whole, he gets asked some questions in regards to the unrealized gains policy that did come out of the Kamala campaign. And you'll see, like, again, I can't emphasize this enough. Bitcoin over party, not party over Bitcoin. I don't care about the Republican Party. I don't care about the Libertarian Party. I don't care about the Democratic Party. I care about the Bitcoin Party. And any party that is endorsing friendly Bitcoin regulations and a friendly environment for Bitcoin entrepreneurs, they have my vote, right? So Party Orange versus Party Green, that's really what it's about. But anyways, it's something very similar in the sense that, like, you know, the official policy that came out was taxing unrealized gains, raising the capital gains tax to 44%. Those are things that have been said. And every time they get asked, they give a non-answer. Of course, Mark Cuban isn't an official representative of the campaign, but it kind of reminds me of the discussions that we've been having over the last couple weeks as it relates to the Kamala campaign's outlook on the Bitcoin industry. Let's check it out.
A bunch of folks in the Valley who I've been in touch with in the past week on this unrealized tax issue, gain issue, and where we've talked about, you know, those who are taking loans against their unrealized stock, et cetera, et cetera. And then they say, well, you know, if you start to tax that, we won't be able to make investments in startups. We won't be able to give money over to venture capitalists and private equity folks and other things like that. What's your feedback to that distinction? Because I wonder, once there's a critique of one, then of one policy, and you get rid of that policy, then of course it moves to the critique of the next version of it.
Well, of course, but okay. So what I told him was, if you tax unrealized gains, you're going to kill the stock market, right? And it's going to be the ultimate employment plan for private equity, because companies are not going to go public because you can get whipsawed, right? I mean, my own personal experience back from the internet days, right? All of a sudden, I was cash poor, but equity rich, right? My net worth was enormous, but the number of dollars in the bank wasn't enormous. And so I'd have, based off of the unrealized gains, I would have had to borrow money, and I effectively would have been in hock just to pay my tax bill instead of trying to run my company, and 1,000 other reasons, right? So they realize that's the issue. I can't repeat it enough. Even though she's not directly conflicting the Biden tax plan, to her value proposition is, we need to tax everybody fairly. I'm starting from the Biden plan as a starting point, but that's not necessarily her ending
Mark,
point.
let me just say, I appreciate you calling in, telling us what you're hearing on these fronts. That's great. But as you've said yourself, you can't speak for the vice president. These are things they're telling you. Who knows what they're telling other people? My guess is they're telling anybody who's donating to them exactly what they want to hear at this point. What matters is what they say publicly and what they will stick to.
No, absolutely, positively not. Right. Let me just be very clear.
I don't know. Like, why do you think that they're telling you the truth and not telling other people other things?
Well, I don't.
If they won't say it publicly, say it publicly. Tell all of us so that we can hold you to it.
I get it, but you've got to get the details right. You can't just.
Yeah, but we have 60 days till an election. Like, you're asking people to take a flyer.
Even if it's the day before the election, right? Even if it's the day before. Look, the next question is, the second thing I was going to mention earlier.
I just don't want everybody to trade on what we think and what we feel and what we think may happen.
Exactly.
Just tell us.
I get
That's exactly what we've been making the case for on the Bitcoin front, right? It's like it's like I get it. You're saying one thing, like the Crypto for Harris people, like they've done a great job. They put the spaces together, and they've done something. But what we're seeing is not reflecting a party that is going to be positive for the industry. There was a vote in the House that happened. It was literally divided across party lines. There was a vote that passed that says it was a bill to ban central bank digital currencies. Basically, every Republican voted for banning a central bank digital currency. Except for 3 Democrats. They voted against banning a bill that would ban central bank digital currencies. Then in their policy, there's no mention of digital assets. And then, not to mention their actions over the last 3 or 4 years coming from the Biden administration, the proposed 30% Bitcoin mining tax, the hostility from Elizabeth Warren, the attack on self-custody, the denial of Caitlin Long's federal banking charter, which she told me when she came on the show came directly from the White House. And then Mark Cuban is essentially saying what the arguments against it, which is no, it's not going to happen. Trust me, bro. So I'm going to go back to what I've been saying, Bitcoin over party, not party over Bitcoin. Until I see hey, we are going to protect self-custody. We are going to protect the right to mine. As a single issue Bitcoin voter, and someone who, has a Bitcoin media platform, I can't in good faith stand behind that candidate because there's no proof of it. It's just kind of like little heartbeats here and there, dropping little media pieces. But if you look into the details, none of them show that there is actual support. It's a he said, she said. And there you see it. This doesn't only apply to the Bitcoin industry. It's a discussion being had on the unrealized gains policy as well, because they did release a policy on taxing unrealized gains. And then you have Mark Cuban providing air cover, but like the anchors are basically saying what we're saying. It's like, but like, I don't understand. Like, why should we trust you? Like, why should we make that trade? Why can't she just come out and publicly say it? So that's our stance on that. Guys, you guys know the deal. We don't lean left. We don't lean right. We are apolitical on Simply Bitcoin. We're single issue voters. We support any candidate that supports a positive Bitcoin regulatory environment. And I just don't see that right now. And they can keep dropping articles, but we're literally going to keep addressing every single one of those articles. Anyways, I'm going to pass it on to Skylar. Skylar, what are your thoughts on this? Just keep in mind, we are on YouTube. So, we have to keep it friendly in the political discourse. But what are your thoughts on this, man? I mean, I hope I laid out the facts for you guys, like make it like very clear. What's your take, Skylar?
My take is solutions don't come through or from government, period. We can't vote our way out of this. They obviously are going to continue to gaslight us and say they're going to tax unrealized gains. And if they do, we'll find a way around it. You can try, but they'll have capital flight. Bitcoiners will head to El Salvador. We already are. So it's only a matter of time before they run all the wealth out of the country. If they continue down this road, there's no way around it. So it's only a matter of time. I think it's ridiculous as well. I'm a single issue voter, but I don't see any way that they can actually implement this. And if they do, we'll all just leave. Capital flight's real. It's happened before. And then there will be a lot of people voting for the party that made them more poor. And as we say, they'll just continue to have fun staying poor.
Yeah, and I see a comment in here regarding the from Roman. It says, "Nah, you endorse Trump. That's not apolitical." Of course, we endorse Trump and RFK because they've had pro Bitcoin policies. Like it's as simple as that. Of course, guys, I can't in good faith endorse a political party or a candidate that has not released any policy towards the industry that has been positive, and their actions over the last 3.5 years have been quite hostile. So as a Bitcoin media organization, it would be irresponsible for me just to take their word for it. And I think the anchor, the CNBC anchor, is feeling that same frustration. Like, it's like, but wait a second, Mark Cuban, like, they literally said they're going to tax unrealized gains. And he's like, no, that's never going to happen. And it's like, then why are they saying that? Anyways, Opti, what's your take on all this?
Yeah, well, my first thought is obviously getting a little tinfoil hat here. I really wonder what kind of dirt they have on Mark Cuban for him to do that much shilling. I'm going to completely skirt over that one. We talked about this. I don't even know how many times. I remember you went on the Spaces for, I forget what it was called, like Democrats for Crypto or something like that. And you laid the same case, essentially saying that there has been a lot of talk, and now it's to back it up with action. And I think this is where we are. And I think the biggest signal that we've been seeing in regards to politics landing on Bitcoin's front door is the fact that as a voting bloc, as a movement, Bitcoin and Bitcoiners are a huge block of the population in the U.S., hence why they are giving us so much lip service. And the fact that they run some headlines like this on Fortune saying, oh, now Kamala is accepting Bitcoin or crypto, and it turns out that that's not actually the case, doesn't surprise me at all. And that's not to say that the Trump campaign is any better. Yes, the Republicans came out for Bitcoin. They're saying that their platform is going to be to push self-custody, the right to mine in the U.S. And then yesterday, or I think it was Tuesday, we find out that the Trump kids are doing some kind of DeFi lending crypto platform that has like a 70% pre-mine, allegedly, according to one white paper. So I don't think both of the parties are doing a very good job in regards to their Bitcoin understanding. But of course, remember, for most of us, when we got into Bitcoin, we didn't really understand anything. We got caught up in the shitcoins as well. So I totally understand that, but it's still seeming that the line in the sand is an anti-Bitcoin stance and a pro-CBDC stance, and then one that is more pro-Bitcoin, pro, even at this point, maybe pro-crypto, which is probably good for the whole industry, and anti-CBDC. So if you are voting, I think the votes are the voting lines are very clear here. But again, I think the signal here is just how powerful of a movement Bitcoin is. The fact that they're even talking about this, I think, just goes to show that it's our meme world and everyone else is just living in it.
100%. And I see a comment here, like, what pro Bitcoin policy did Trump promote while in office? He's running for president, so he's
talking about 2016. They're saying like, oh, they hated Bitcoin in 2016.
Yeah,
we'll give people the benefit of the doubt that they can change.
For sure. But like, that's the whole point of like an election. Like you pander, that you try to get votes, right? That's the whole point. And they've officially introduced it into the party platform. Like, don't take my word for it. You could look it up. Right? Like it's there. Protect self-custody, protect the right to mine. You're not seeing that from the other side. That's all I'm pointing out. So anyways, all right, everybody, before we move on to the next section, stay tuned because we are going to talk about this amazing report that was released by River Financial in regards to a record amount of business adoption in Bitcoin terms and where I believe this is going. I think eventually every business, whether it's a large business, a publicly traded company, a small business, is not going to have a choice but to adopt some type of Bitcoin strategy. Anyways, everybody, let's get to the news.
The Daily News.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation Devices. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US. It's fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a simple feature phone. So you will know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes. Experience the peace of mind that comes with taking ownership of your own keys. After a massive sellout during Bitcoin Miami 2023, the Passport is back in stock at foundationdevices.com. Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, completely air-gapped security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. If you're thinking about getting your Bitcoin off exchanges, this is the one for you. Check out the Passport link in the show notes below to learn more. All right, everybody, scan the QR code on your screen right now. I'll take you directly to the Passport by Foundation Devices website where you can use promo code SIMPLY to get a discount. Remember, guys, not your keys, not your cheese. You want to take self-custody of your Bitcoin, and we recommend the Passport by Foundation Devices. Completely open source. It's incredibly easy to use. Guys, check it out. Take self-custody of your Bitcoin. All right, everybody. So today's topic, the headline of today's video is the massive Bitcoin adoption happening from businesses. And River actually released an incredible report. I don't know if we'll have time to go through the entire thing because it's quite long, but there are some things that I want to highlight, and I think it would make a great discussion for the panel that we have today, Opti and our guest, Skylar. So everybody, let's start off with this. Why is this happening? Well, incentives. We played you guys a video of Howard Lupnick, the CEO of Counter Fitzgerald, and of course we all remember Larry Fink in the beginning of the year when the ETF was launched, go on MSNBC and preach Satoshi's gospel. We all remember that. Why is this happening? Well, it is Bitcoin's incentives. And if you're a business and a competitor has adopted a Bitcoin strategy and you have not adopted a Bitcoin strategy, you are now at a competitive disadvantage. So it's just market forces doing what market forces will do. And that's actually the case that Howard Lupnick was making. Makes it basically saying like, look, we're in the beginning of institutional Bitcoin adoption. 5 years from now, every bank is going to custody this thing. Every bank is going to sell this thing. And it's not going to be an option. It's not going to be a choice. It's going to be a matter of, do you want your business to thrive or do you want your business to get left behind? It's as simple as that. So anyways, let's get to the numbers. First, Michael Saylor doing what Michael Saylor does best, putting his on the table. And right here, 4 years on the Bitcoin standard, and you would have outperformed every company in the S&P 500, including NVIDIA, which is the darling right now. Everyone's talking about NVIDIA. MicroStrategy. They're not the most powerful and successful GPU manufacturer in the world. They're not, right? They're a software company, but because they have adopted a Bitcoin strategy, they've outperformed everybody else. That is the power of Bitcoin. That is something, this is why, like, when they were talking about essentially forget about retirement and you might have to get a second job, and they're just telling you, like, just get used to being poorer than your parents. No, with Bitcoin, you don't have to do that. In fact, you don't even have to be poorer than your parents. You don't even have to be on the same level of your parents. You have the opportunity to prosper more than your parents, which is what I think things should be like, honestly. But because of the manipulation of fiat money, it like forces this inflation thing onto society. And I really believe that a lot of society's woes and problems right now stem from broken money. And I think that if you fix the money, it has very consequential effects, because what a lot of people forget, and it just slips their mind, is that money plays an instrumental role in human society. I would say it's the base layer of society. The camera, the microphone I'm using, the laptop I'm using, the phone I have, even these eye drops that I have because my eyes get dry. I use money to buy all these things. I use money to our business, Simply Bitcoin. We get paid in money. That's how we pay. That's how we pay the bills. So it's like money is an instrumental role in society, and the money is corrupted and it's broken. And despite it being broken and corrupted, the free market still finds a way, which I find, beautiful and poetic. But this is what I'm talking about. And it's just a matter of time before businesses, not individuals, so individuals are realizing this, but businesses also start to realize this, and they start to adopt a Bitcoin strategy for their business. So, and this is exactly what River has found out. They created a research report, and the title is Why Business Bitcoin Adoption Grew by 30% in 1 year. That is absolutely bonkers. Let's get through some of this report. So let's first start off with the state of Bitcoin adoption. In this chapter, we cover where business Bitcoin adoption stands in 2024 across public data, proprietary data from River, and insights from a survey of River's business clients. So here is the Bitcoin ownership distribution. The vast majority of Bitcoin is still held by individuals, like they should be. Lost Bitcoin is estimated to be around 4 million. And businesses hold roughly 683,000 Bitcoin. Funds hold about 1.09 Bitcoin. Governments hold about 500,000. And there's still yet 1.25 million Bitcoin yet to be mined, right? So I love it because the distribution is still in the hands of the people, still in the hands of individuals. Anyways, take a look at this adoption rate by companies. Insane. All started in 2020 because that's when Chad Saylor announced his strategy. And of course, he's been vindicated. These numbers are undeniable. For our audio listeners, the top 10 performing stocks in the S&P, MicroStrategy is leading the pack because he adopted a Bitcoin strategy. But if you take a look at the graph, right, it's not only public companies, but also private companies that have adopted a Bitcoin strategy. And as you could see, it's just gone parabolic. It was close to zero back in 2020, and now it's north of 600,000 Bitcoin if you combine private companies and public companies. So absolutely bullish. Public companies with Bitcoin, continues to go parabolic. So all of these things just continue to be heading in the right direction. Here's a graph of public companies with Bitcoin holdings. Of course, the vast majority are public miners. There are some crypto companies. Technology companies include Reddit. I'm going to name the ones that you guys are familiar with because there's other ones on here. So there's MicroStrategy, there's Reddit, there's Block, that's Jack Dorsey's company, Mercado Libre, which is like one of the biggest kind of eBay sites in South America. Tesla is on there. Real estate, Metaplanet, finance, BlackRock, of course, we all know that. Healthcare, we have Selmer Scientific. Anyways, you guys get the point. right? So this huge amount of adoption. Now, what's really interesting is what is stopping more companies from adopting Bitcoin, and is actually something that Howard Lupnick said when we played you guys the cold opening a couple days ago. The main concern as to why these companies don't want to adopt Bitcoin is not because they don't believe in Bitcoin, the asset, but it is because of the accounting and tax treatment. So it's a regulatory issue. It's not an asset issue. It's a regulatory issue. Only 22% say it's because of Bitcoin's volatility, right? But like, think about this. Accounting and tax treatment, regulatory uncertainty, like, come on now. Only 10% of companies are getting other stakeholders to agree. And that number is going to continue to go down as MicroStrategy continues to outperform everything because it has adopted a Bitcoin strategy. Now, check this out. Among River's business clients, allocation sizes to Bitcoin vary significantly. So it's interesting that 36% of River Financial's business clients actually hold more than 50% of their treasuries in Bitcoin. That's awesome. 28% hold it in 10% hold 28% of River's total business clients hold less than 10% in Bitcoin. About 17% hold 17% of River Financial's business clients hold 10 to 25% of their treasury in Bitcoin, and another 17%, 26 to 50% hold 17% of River Financial's business clients hold 26 to 50% in Bitcoin as a treasury holding. So very, very interesting. Now, forecasting into the future, you kind of have different outlooks on here, but it looks like everything else in Bitcoin. It's going up into the right. So where does business adoption go from here? Broadly speaking, the rate of Bitcoin adoption is unpredictable in nature. Nonetheless, we forecast cumulative Bitcoin holdings by the beginning of 2026 in 3 ways. So they make the different cases. The lower bound is MicroStrategy, Tether, Coinbase, and Square maintain publicly disclosed strategies for acquiring Bitcoin, allowing for a somewhat predictable forecasting for their future holdings. So this is just accounting for the existing companies. Middle bound, in the first half of 2024, businesses purchased an aggregate of 64,886 Bitcoin, among to 356 Bitcoin per day. Our middle bound estimate extrapolates the rate of purchases until 2026. And then the upper bound, this is more speculative territory. In the most optimistic scenario, we estimate that 10% of US companies will convert 1.5% of their cash, or 10.35 billion, to Bitcoin over the next 18 months. That is very, very conservative. And as you could see, the rate of business Bitcoin adoption continues to go up into the right. Even on the lower end, where it's just Tether, it's just Coinbase, it's just MicroStrategy, still going up. The middle bound, where it's basically making the assumption that it's not only MicroStrategy, it's not only Tether, it's not only Coinbase, but also other companies are going to continue this trend as well. And then the more speculative aspect, which is they're going to see what Michael Saylor is doing, and they're going to be like, okay, that's probably a good strategy. And I mean, 1.5% of their total cash, that's nothing. Like that's minuscule. And the amount of benefits that from just allocating that one, that would overcome the amount of purchasing power they're losing to inflation. I think that this is what this next section is covering. Bitcoin treasuries often business treasuries often fail to preserve value due to the poor performance of cash and short-term investments. Before we dive into how Bitcoin can improve a business treasury, it helps to first understand why most businesses are losing money on their treasury holdings. A typical business treasury today consists of cash equivalents, and marketable securities. These assets are highly liquid, meaning they can be converted to cash quickly and usually maintain a stable value as priced in dollars. It goes on to say, with the part that I want to get to, where is it? Here it is. common treasury assets consistently underperform inflation. And that's the problem, right? Is that you might be holding cash equivalents or cash, but remember, even in the best year, the ideal inflation rate, not to mention the fact that they've changed all the CPI metrics, they've changed all these things. And in an ideal year, it's still 2%. And if you're Apple and you're holding on to hundreds of millions of dollars worth of cash and you're just sitting on it, do the math. That's a lot of purchasing power that you're losing every year. So imagine instead, you could be super conservative. Instead of putting 10% of your treasury into Bitcoin, you put 2% into Bitcoin. That 2% allocation to Bitcoin could compensate for the amount of purchasing power that you're losing on that 98% that for whatever reason you chose to still keep in cash. It's a no-brainer in my opinion. Anyways, and here's the case of Apple. Apple's a notable example of a company that maintains a large treasury, exceeding $150 billion over the past decade. While highly diversified across securities and foreign currencies, Apple's treasury remains vulnerable to inflation due to its nature of its holdings. So they hold mortgages, they hold corporate and mutual bonds, they hold non-U.S. government bonds, they hold U.S. treasuries, they hold cash, they hold COM, paper, CDs, MMFs. The point is that, take a look at this. Apple has seldom leveraged its balance sheet, spending less than $5 billion on acquisitions over the past decade. During the same period, its treasury lost the company over $15 billion in real terms, or after adjusting for inflation. $15 billion just poof out of thin air because they chose to keep their treasury in cash or cash equivalents. And it's such an easy fix. They could have just put 5%, 2%, 1.5% into Bitcoin, and maybe it wouldn't have compensated for that entire 15 billion. Well, actually, yeah, because Bitcoin performed crazily those last 15 years. But at least it would have made up for that loss of purchasing power. So this is a no-brainer. If you're a small business, if you're a big business, if you're a publicly traded company, it is not a question of should you adopt a Bitcoin strategy. It's a question of you have to adopt a Bitcoin strategy or you put your business at risk because your competitors are adopting a Bitcoin strategy and therefore they have a competitive advantage over you because their treasuries are not melting ice cubes. And if you are just holding on to cash, your treasury is literally a melting ice cube. So anyways, bullish for future Bitcoin business adoption. Incredible report by River, broke it down there, made the case. We've made the case for Apple in the past before. This is a no-brainer. And I think all it takes is one company. And look, as much as people hate on Elon, people seem to forget Tesla, okay, which is not, it's a mainstream kind of like S&P 500 company, holds 10,000 Bitcoin, and SpaceX, which is private, they hold 8,000 Bitcoin. So this is already happening. There's companies that have already adopted a Bitcoin strategy that are not MicroStrategy, that are not Coinbase. The next question is, who's up next? I think it's just a matter of time because of Bitcoin's game theory and incentives. Anyways, I'm going to pass it on to Skylar. Went on a little bit of a ramble, but I just wanted to educate our viewers and just show everybody, look, Bitcoin business adoption is growing and it is not an option but to adopt a Bitcoin strategy for your treasury holdings.
Well, it's not if, but when, right? I mean, Saylor said it's a melting ice cube. So what's it going to take? I mean, is NVIDIA going to start holding Bitcoin on their treasury before everybody realizes it's a good idea? Berkshire Hathaway, who's it going to take? I know me personally, I have a Bitcoin treasury. Everybody should. There's no other answer. So you either get on now or never, or wait until somebody, your neighbor, tells you it's a good idea. Nonetheless, all these small businesses will get on, or they'll die. It's the zombie company.
Metaphorically, everything's
Yep. So it's only a matter of time. These mid-sized businesses are going to have to adopt Bitcoin or go out of business and get bought out by a Bitcoin business, right? We're going to see a whole generation of people taking over businesses and integrating Bitcoin and keeping them alive. I think it's only a matter of time.
I 100% agree with you. Opti, what's your take on all this, brother?
Yeah, well, first of all, really appreciate River dropping that report. I think that's what we've been saying this whole year. Obviously, as a Bitcoiner, we always get stupidly bullish. So we always overestimate everything. And we, you know, especially with price predictions and the time frame of adoption. But I think this is good signal in regards to what we've been saying for a long time, that now the game has changed and everyone is looking at Bitcoin as a legitimate investment, a legitimate, oh, my mic come off? A legitimate, it's still on apparently. Legitimate investment and a legitimate asset to hold for your business. Obviously, like Skylar was saying, as a small business, there may be some volatility concerns. So don't put all of your assets into Bitcoin that you need to actually survive on your into Bitcoin for your balance sheet. But you should have some Bitcoin on your holdings. And, you know, we've done this as simply Bitcoin, and we always look at it as this opportunity to have a bigger runway so that we can continue to do this for as long as possible. But really, while we were going through this, it reminded me of our conversation we had yesterday with Michelle from BitRefill. And he basically said the same thing. He's like, yeah, as a company, we did this in, I forget what the dates were, but he's like, we did this in like 2014 or something. It was super risky at the time, but we accepted the risk and it helped our company grow. It helped us maintain the position that we're at. And I think that's what traditional financial businesses are feeling right now. It does still feel like a risk for most people, because once you go down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, it's a no-brainer. But when you're still in the traditional financial world and you do have a lot of bills to pay and everything is priced in fiat terms, it seems like an unnecessary move. But as we're seeing this year, and I'm sure we'll see more of this next year, that it's a no-brainer for every company once they start looking at MicroStrategy's returns. Anyone and everyone is going to follow this strategy. But I think this is still the early innings of this game. And this is why we're kind of just seeing some trickling come in from companies, some companies that see the writing on the wall and they are thinking to themselves, like, how do I get out of this position? And it's obviously saving some Bitcoin, put some Bitcoin on your balance sheet, and that they are going to succeed. So I think more people are going to follow suit. Will we see them happen in Q4 of this year? We'll see what happens. Most likely we won't get any signs of this until next year. But I think next year, as price starts to go up, it's going to grow exponentially. And of course, like, as a Bitcoin company that does hold Bitcoin on its balance sheet, this year was probably, and maybe even last year, it was really more of an ideological play, because I don't think most people or most companies are willing to withstand the volatility of Bitcoin. But I think that is going to slow down in time, and they'll start to see the value of Bitcoin. But anyway, let's get into the culture, because I do want to talk about Skylar. And I don't want to put I know I don't want to dox too much of what you're saying, but you did drop it that you have done this personally and it has helped you. So let's get into the culture, Nico, and then we'll talk about this.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, let's hit the culture. Here we go.
The Daily Culture.
All right, everybody, I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, the Orange Pill app, the Bitcoin social layer. Friends who stack sats, join the 12,233 Bitcoiners that are on the app. What is the Orange Pill app? The Orange Pill app is the #1 resource for Bitcoin-only events, and it's also the #1 resource for connecting with fellow Bitcoiners. So if you've lived in your city for a while, or perhaps you're traveling for a conference, whatever reason, and you don't know any Bitcoiners around you, you pull up the Orange Pill app and it will literally show you geographically Bitcoiners that are near you. And it allows you to send them a message directly and you can connect with them. It's probably a good idea to build up that Bitcoiner Rolodex. I think Bitcoiners are going to be some of the most influential, powerful people over the next, 5, 10, 15 years. So build up that Bitcoiner Rolodex. Download the Orange Pill app. One of the best ways to reach me directly. I don't really answer Twitter DMs these days or random emails. So if you want to reach me, download the Orange Pill app, send me a message, and I'll get back to every single one of you guys in about a week or so. All right, everybody. I'm excited. We have a guest today, Skylar. Skylar is an expert, or he's highly knowledgeable in Bitcoin mining. And I'm going to start off this conversation before I pass it on to Opti, because I am hijacking this a little bit. Skylar, like, it is very painful to be a Bitcoin miner right now, my friend. The hash rate continues to make all-time highs. For anyone who doesn't know what that means, the amount of computational power that is actively mining the Bitcoin network, it's making all-time highs, which means the difficulty goes even higher, which means that it's harder for a miner to mine Bitcoin. Not to mention the halving happened 3 or 4 months ago. So the amount of Bitcoin that is being mined got cut in half as well. Like, dude, talk about brutal. Talk about, like, holy cow, what is going on? And it's interesting to see the hash rate continue to break all-time highs despite this very, very brutal environment for miners right now. If you don't have low power costs right now, you are struggling. So we have Skylar on today to talk about this. What's your take on the overall mining market, man? It's brutal right now.
Brutal. I think we got 737 exahash as of 2 days ago. It's not stopping. I mean, we're going to be at 1,000 exahash with a zettahash by the end of the year. But people are going to keep plugging in machines. Me personally, if there's a will, there's a way. I think we're going to have to find creative alternatives to what to do with our heat, with our hash. And it's not just plug in a machine and get sats out the other end like it used to be. So I think moving forward, we're going to have a whole new industry based around mid-sized miners, right? The public guys are going to be fine. They're going to keep raising capital. They're going to keep refinancing their gains. All those high-level guys are going to be fine. But the small to mid-sized miners are getting crushed. So unfortunately, it's a rough ship for these small operations.
Yeah, 100%. And the reason that the big guys are able to just like maintain is because of economies of scale, right? So they're able to get really good deals, different, isolated energy pockets around the world. There was this news that came out that the Kingdom of Bhutan decided to increase their mining capability and capacity, partnering up with BitDeer. And of course, that's a tremendous amount of hydroelectricity, but, it's economies of scale come in. Like, a smaller operation, these days it's pretty expensive to get one off the ground, to be honest with you guys. But, if you're building a facility for 10,000 miners as a whole, it's going to be a lot cheaper than if you're building a facility for 100 miners, right? And that's what I mean when I talk about economies of scale. Now, I am very optimistic in terms of, and I love the way that Bob Burnett, CEO of Barefoot Mining, phrases it. He calls it the rabbits, the horses, and the elephants, trying to categorize the size of each miner. And I am very, very bullish on the horses and the rabbits. And I think that the BitAxe is just a great example of, one BitAxe might not be a lot of hash rate, but you put together 2 million of those boys, decentralized in the process. Good luck banning, right? Good luck banning that. So yeah, I'm very optimistic about that. Also, I hear a lot of news about flared gas happening, in the northern parts of America, using excess gas to mine Bitcoin. It's not really scalable in the sense because each site only has so much capacity, and also it's pretty technically complex to mine Bitcoin using flared gas. So that's another example of like off-grid, smaller scale mining operations that are viable because remember, it's flared gas. This gas is already going to waste. Actually, the U.S. government penalizes you for flaring a lot of that gas. So you're actually incentivized to use that gas, and what better use than just turning that gas into sweet Satoshi. So some of those sites, you know, they won't gift it to you, but they'll sell you that electricity for very, very, very cheap. So yeah, man, what are your thoughts on to use Bob's terms, the rabbits and the horse miners?
I think that's great, and I think it's only going to happen more and more. You know, here locally, we're looking at using turkey litter, hog farms, chicken farms to mine off of the methane, and it's a creative alternative. Everybody's getting their back scratched. They get to, you know, say that they're reducing the amount of methane into the environment. We're looking at greenhouses that are burning through thousands of gallons of propane, capturing that, reducing their carbon footprint. So it's becoming a more resilient network in that way. And once again, this is small businesses integrating, working with miners. You don't have to have an operation for 10,000 units, and you're already causing this methane to escape into the environment. So what better way to turn it into sats, right? That's really the only option moving forward.
Absolutely. Amen to that. Opti, it's all yours.
Yeah. So I really kind of want to pivot this, and you just touched on it, where more of your expertise comes in, and it's small businesses using mining, reusing heat, and finding alternative energy sources. Because I know in this last year or two, I've had so many friends that tried to deploy a mining, farm, and they went all in on mining, and they got themselves absolutely wrecked. And personally, I'm glad that I just stuck to stacking sats, but I know you kind of have a different take on this, and you just keep doubling down on this view of there is an avenue for small businesses and individuals to get into mining, which isn't just stacking sats, but there's alternative uses of your mining rigs that can potentially help your businesses.
That's right. And there's powers in numbers. And I think if you have a good partnership, I was talking to some guys out in Nashville whose uncle chops firewood, and they want to integrate miners to kiln dry the wood, right? That's what I'm doing down here in North Carolina. So you're going to have to find alternative ways, revenues to keep your miners hashing, right? Because we all know when it pumps and runs up, you want to be mining, but what do you do right now when it's technically fiat negative? You always want to keep your machines up. So finding those alternative solutions, we've all heard about the Russian bath spa in New York that's heating their pools. We've talked about the Sat Sauna earlier. Any solution to just decentralize the network further is what we have to do. And I think that heat reuse is just in its beginning. Riot's actually heating an entire community with a 2 megawatt system in Finland right now. Stuff like that. I've heard it's going on in Canada as well. So I think it'll just become the norm in a long enough time frame, because, as Bitcoiners, we're going to find a way, and we're going to continue to reuse heat. We're going to continue to hash forever. Yeah. What do they say? Forever, Laura.
It's going up forever, Laura. It's going up forever.
All right. I got one quick question for you, and then I'm sure it'll start another combo. But Skylar, if you had a 1 to 2 minute pitch for someone out there, and you're doing the elevator pitch for someone, what would be that pitch to try to get them to, at the very least, look into the benefits of mining Bitcoin for their small business?
Well, once again, I think it's a partnership that you would need to have, and I would just ask them to consider looking at the overhead, their capital expense, and see where we can deduct that expense, right? What are you spending right now on propane? And let's offset that with sats. And once again, what's the best way to store if you want to start a treasury, let's just take an existing expense and turn it into savings. That's what I think I would try to get, because it's like Will Reeves does a great job with Fold and No Coiners. How do we get people to get off zero? Free sats, right? They mine through the debit card. I would talk to a small business owner and say, hey, how are we going to integrate mining into your operation to save you money? You're already spending the money. Let's save that, your dirty fiat, and just convert it into sats directly. And you can start a treasury, and you don't have to go out and talk to a tax guy and all these fiat things. And, of course, there's great ways to stack however you can. But I think the most pure way and resilient way is to turn your existing dollars that you're spending into your treasury through sats.
Love that, man.
Wait, I got one more question. I want you to speculate a little bit here, Skylar. Is the Bitcoin mining bull run going to return, or are miners going to be in the gulags forever?
Like I said, if you want to get into mining, just go down to the boxing gym and get punched in the face. And save yourself some time and energy. Like we're not here for we're here for a revolution. It's not about it's the profit. So I mean, I'm fine in the gulag with my boys. We know where we all stand. So gulag or not, or yacht or not, we're here to stay.
I love that. I love that. That, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly why we're going to win. I had the honor of hosting a public miner versus, off-grid miner panel between, public miner executives and HODL Tarantula and Bob Burnett, of course. And I had to separate the two. But it's so interesting because, of course, the public miners provide this huge amount of hash rate. But because they're so big, they have the potential to be co-opted or more pressure could be put on them by the state and by the government. And this is why off-grid miners like yourself, Skylar, and like the BitAxe and, Tarantula doing his thing is so important. Because you just said it, man. You're like, bro, listen, I don't need the yacht. I'm here for the revolution. Like you can't stop that. Like you get enough people with that thinking, like that's an unstoppable movement, and that's what Bitcoin's all about, and this is why Bitcoin has survived this long, because I think a lot of us are here. Yes, okay, we came for the money. You could definitely say that, but we stayed for the revolution, and we want to effectuate change. We want to change the world. We want to free mankind and humanity from the tyranny of central banking, and we need all hands on deck in order for that to happen. Anyways, any last words, Skylar, for our audience before we wrap it up?
Well, you mentioned HODL Tarantula. I think he's offering 1.5 cents hosting on his off grid. You might have to do some maintenance, or maybe there's a little fee he's charging. But I noticed that earlier. I mean, that's incredible. That's incredible. You can do that stateside. You don't have to send your machines off to wonder where they are. You got a good old boy in the Midwest that'll let you come and plug. So that's the movement that we're here for. That's the resiliency. I mean, he's not unplugging,
Absolutely. But we refuse to go back.
Go. Sorry. Do it.
We refuse to go back to a system that steals from us.
No. What's the Kamala Democrat meme right now? We're not going back. We are going back. We're not going back. Anyways, I do.
Bitcoin, unburden yourself from what has been.
There's the new one. It's like we're not going back or something like that. But anyways, Skylar, I do want the last words, because I know this is what you're about, and this is what you're telling us before the show about Bitcoin. It's more about the revolution than just the number go up. So do one last little plug on why the revolution is so important to you, and then we'll wrap this one up.
We've just got to get back to sound money. Full stop. That's just it. Because everybody knows what fiat's done. Me and a friend were talking just the other day. If it weren't for fiat, we'd have a better trash compactor. If it weren't for fiat, like all these people are in this fiat industry, just their life, just wasting it. And we just got to get back to a place where people enjoy what they do, save and sound money. Not everybody needs to be an investor. In fact, it's a terrible idea. Just save and sound money and you'll be fine. And you can get back to living the life you want to live.
100%. 100%. All right, everybody. That was Simply Bitcoin Live for September 5th, 2024. I'm your host, Nico. Is my co-host, Optimus Fields, and our guest for today, Skylar. I think maybe Skylar will be making some content for us, maybe, potentially. Anyways, guys, if you guys enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash the like button. Consider subscribing. Tomorrow's going to be an interesting day for Simply Bitcoin, so stay tuned. And we love you all. Have an amazing Thursday. And we'll be back tomorrow for the last episode of the week for Simply Bitcoin Live.
Episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, on a mission to enable independence.